We have historically been working in financial services for about 7 or 8 years, along with 6 or 7 other industry verticals, including government, public sector, naturally telecom, energy and utilities, transportation, and the newest one is really healthcare, which is quite exciting too. The history traces back 7 or 8 years though, and the division in Huawei that predominantly works with industry verticals is called our Enterprise Business Group. However, historically, for the past 7 or 8 years, it's been selling infrastructure solutions, storage, servers, networking into these industry verticals. Okay, but we are working in other industry divisions. Our consumer division is a great example, where we have Huawei Pay, very much like Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Google Pay. But the consumer division is focused on the consumer. Okay, so it's not really an industry solution per se, Huawei Pay. It's more or less a consumer solution. And then the consumer, based on where they buy our phone, they can integrate to whatever credit card or payment options are in the local market where they buy our phone. Okay. Our carrier division, which is the third division of reference, works with mobile network operators, so around the world. So these are the large mobile network providers. This is where 5G comes into play, okay, and where Huawei is deploying 5G. We're working with mobile network operators for wireless, as an example. So one of our interesting financial services solutions born out of that division, called M-Pesa, and that will work together with Vodafone, which is a mobile network operator, and Safaricom for African consumers. Okay, and the uniqueness about that, why it's disruptive, is you can send money or remittances to each other or from a small medium enterprise to an individual via telco, okay, via your smartphone. Okay, so my role here is I kind of outlined 3 areas of financial services that we're working in, but these are like 3 separate businesses under one roof. So you have our enterprise business selling infrastructure. You have a consumer division that has our phones and our smart devices selling capability through Huawei Pay for payments. And then you have our carrier division that has mobile money that sells it through telco business now. Okay? And these 3 camps, they don't necessarily work horizontally together. Okay, so now when you look at a capability perspective of Huawei versus an Alibaba or a Tencent or any other large platform player out there, e-commerce giant, so Amazon or Google, okay, any of these companies that I just named, the 4 or 5 of them, they do not make phones. They do not make 5G.
So would you say, Bill,
okay, so
that this is your competitive advantage because you have the Apple, you have the Amazon, and you have the Alibabas in the world, which are offering exactly the same or similar financial services as well. So would you say that your advantage compared to Amazon, for example, is that you have a smartphone, but Apple has that as well with the iPhone?
Yeah, but there's gaps on both sides of those companies. Okay, so the research that I'm leading in my role is we are looking at over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who are going to be the most innovation-led companies that are going to deliver next generation digital financial services. So in other words, you as an individual, if you need to make a payment or you need to borrow money or you need to invest or deposit money to save it, you're not necessarily wanting to go to a bank. Okay, you want to do that from any platform, any place, anywhere. Okay, so who is going to offer that capability in terms of how to leverage innovation, technology, and new business models? Now, the companies that you just named, okay, there are some gaps. So if we look at them one by one, Alibaba as an example, a lot of similarities in terms of application of technology in their platform, very similar to Huawei. So we're all working on AI. We all have blockchain. These companies are putting their feet in the water with quantum computing, which we have as well. Alibaba, I believe, is doing the same. However, the difference between us and them is they don't offer a device. They don't make devices, okay? And the other thing is they don't make 5G, okay? And the other thing is in those devices, we have built our own artificial intelligence system on a chip. So the power of the consumer, you and me, to transact and have access to embedded financial services from the palm of our hand or on our wrist or even any other wearable, okay, is very, very compelling through Huawei's offering. Okay.
Bill, give us a sense. What is the current
right now we have
market share for Huawei's financial services, electronic consumer payment market in China today?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. I mean, we're certainly a laggard. Okay, so compared to some of the other manufacturers that are using Samsung Pay, even Samsung Pay is using Huawei Pay in China as an example. Okay, Apple Pay and Google Pay, so on and so forth. Okay, the power is going to be when we move more into a horizontal direction and start leveraging everything we have in our portfolio. Right now, okay, the go-to-market strategy, okay, for the payment application, okay, Huawei Pay is an example, is very, very much bound or tied to the device. Okay, so where the device goes, okay, in terms of sales, Huawei Pay is power. And we're doing very well. I mean, we're doing very well.
That many of the Huawei phone buyers, particularly Chinese who live in Chinese territories, today they opt to use WeChat Pay or AliPay as a payment option. Wouldn't it be the case? So in a way that for me to have a Huawei phone, that is not necessarily a sufficient reason for me to use Huawei Pay. How would you address that situation?
I agree. I agree with you 100%, but likewise, I came into China as an American with my Apple phone, before I joined Huawei. I didn't have a Huawei phone. Now I have both, and still, okay, me using an Apple phone, that very same example, I didn't use Apple Pay. I chat on Apple, so I still do, so there's a prime example of market share that's been gained from a platform perspective, in a super app perspective, okay, that's not bound to the device. Okay, so that's a shift.
Bill, on a more lateral subjects, you have talked about Huawei is a private company, and the world actually, every time when I talk about Huawei, the world actually knows so little about it. And within the corporate structure, we have the 5G infrastructure revenue generating division. We have the smartphone division, and now you're talking about we have the financial services division to businesses and to consumers. Within the Huawei revenue network, how would you split up the revenue generating shares of all these different divisions?
Yeah, well, I mean, the consumer division, starting there, the division that makes the phones and the smart devices, the laptops, is not, and this is the same as Apple or Samsung as well, any other device manufacturer. They don't split out revenue or profit financials by industry vertical. We want to start to move into supporting credit and lending, okay, for mobile network operators. And like I said,
when it comes to moving into markets, Bill, I'm also very interested in learning more about your Africa strategy that you've touched upon earlier with, for example, M-Pesa in Eastern Africa, or Safari, which means traveling in Swahili. So Huawei has traveling plans into Africa, expanding your business and your footprint there. There's also ClickPesa, which is gaining a lot of momentum, especially in Tanzania and Kenya as well, because Eastern Africa so far has not really been tapped when it comes to digital and e-payment services. So what kind of plans does Huawei have there, especially in Eastern Africa?
Well, it's still evolving. Okay, so our plan is really revolving around relationships and accounts that we have. So Safaricom is a big one. Zain is another big name that we have there. MTN. Okay, and from a portfolio basis, what work are we doing with these accounts? Starting with our legacy. Okay, so the foot in the door, the point in working with them is what communication infrastructure, how are we supporting them with 5G? And then it kind of mushrooms from there, the discussion and the relationship. Okay, can we work with you further to get into some fintech-oriented solutions or financial services, to expand your revenue stream? And that's how, for example, how M-Pesa was born. Okay, because the operator needed to expand in Africa, and they're not making as much money in terms of their traditional telco services, so they're starting to move into mobile money solutions. And now they want to grow more of that. They want to be able to start offering credit and lending to their customers via the mobile channels. Okay. However, the challenge is the regulators in these countries. And Africa, as you probably know, is very, very fragmented from a regulatory perspective and solution perspective. And in some countries, the regulators in Africa are more forward-thinking. In others, they push back and say, well, if you start to move into credit and lending, the telco side of the house, you're becoming more of a bank. And then you need to open a bank license and charter. Okay, so some of these things are kind of curtailed. Okay, in terms of that. But we're looking obviously for those countries in Africa that are a little bit more progressive, that want to go more into fintech solutions, where we can support them and build out the software and the hardware on both the 5G side for mobile money and help them expand their services, because obviously it works for us as well. So, we have to look at the regulatory landscape, what's being permitted by the mobile network operator to move into some of these directions.
Would you say in 20 years' time, Huawei will become a major global fintech player?
Will become a what?
A major global fintech player.
Hard to say.
What is the strategy?
I'll put it to you that way. Huawei. Well, the strategy, each division has their own strategy. Okay, and this is unique to my career, and not so much. But I worked with other major players. I worked for IBM for over a decade, and I've seen them transform. My dad spent 30 years with IBM. I worked for KPMG, and I came into both of those companies from a bank, from banking. And I also, along the way, I was a CIO and CTO for a blockchain company. What's kind of unique here, despite itself, okay, and despite everything that's going on in the world, Huawei has continued to survive and thrive in all divisions. Okay, so there's been growth over the years in all of the divisions. Some divisions better than others. So the consumer division has been the fastest growing and the highest performing. Our enterprise business group has been probably the fastest growing. Okay, and carrier division, the one that is the traditional, where we sell infrastructure and 5G to carriers worldwide, there's been growth there, but it's been the slowest growth.
You have smartphones, you have blockchain, AI, fintech, all of these different divisions. Is there not a risk that you grow too fast into too many different areas and there is a risk of failure in the future or breakups from this monopoly that you're basically holding?
Well, once again, some of the points you mentioned are not divisions. So we don't have a fintech division. We don't have a blockchain division. Okay, fintech, like I said, earlier and a bit throughout the call, is kind of embedded in a number of divisions. Okay, fintech is not a division. It's not an offering, but there's fintech solutions. Okay, and fintech is primarily oriented around functions of financial services. The best example and the biggest fintech in the world is PayPal. Okay, and PayPal is a method for payments, and that's where the disruption to the industry started. So Huawei has a number of ways to enable payments for the consumer and also B2B for banks. Okay, so that's embedded in three different divisions. Now, blockchain, okay, is a solution very much similar to Alibaba and IBM and Microsoft and Amazon now, which is embedded in our cloud division. Okay, so if a customer wants to take advantage of blockchain, they buy and they store on Huawei Cloud, very much like they do with AWS or Azure. Okay, so some of these solutions, like I said, are embedded in different divisions, and my goal is to go horizontal with them. Okay, so they're not so embedded in pockets and silos, and put together a cohesive strategy that says we are most prepared to enable next generation financial services horizontally. Okay, instead of we having one customer that's a bank where we would sell servers to, we can support financial services from a number of different target customers. That's the goal, and really that reflects what's going on right now. Okay, because like I said earlier, if you to do anything related to a financial service, top of mind, you're not going to your bank anymore. I mean, you're going to your device, you're going to your e-commerce selection, and so on and so forth. It's invisible. It doesn't belong or it's not owned to anybody anymore.
So for all the financial services that you offer at Huawei, who finances these lending solutions from Huawei's revenue? But then that's, again, I think that's one of the bigger questions for the world, because Apple is a publicly listed company, Alibaba is a publicly listed company, Tencent is, but we don't know how much Huawei generates annually. We don't know how much money Huawei has. We don't know how sustainable these sort of banking solutions will be. That wouldn't be a unreasonable question for the rest of the world to ask, would it?
Well, I mean, what's pretty much public knowledge in terms of what we do in the industry globally. Okay, it's 1.2 billion per year, 1 billion per year. Okay, but that's been predominantly based out of one business unit, which is the enterprise business unit, the enterprise business group, which sells infrastructure. So we're working in and towards 10 of the world's largest 22 banks. Okay, and we Bank of China, ICBC, so on and so forth, China Merchants Bank. Okay, and banks in Europe and Latin America as well. Bradesco was another good example. Orange Bank, and a number of banks in Europe. But we predominantly sell them infrastructure. So we're selling server storage and network gear. Now, the other number I mentioned earlier, on top of the 1 or 1.2 billion, is about $80 to $100 million. But that target customer is not financial services traditionally. It's a mobile network operator, telco. Okay, and this is what's changing in the industry. Financial services, in terms of capturing revenue and profit, okay, and the metrics related to that, does not belong traditionally to the bank, the investment bank, or the insurer, because you have a number of players getting in.
An idea there. Would Huawei ever become a publicly listed company, and what is the reason that Huawei chooses not to?
That's a good question. I don't, honestly, candidly and frankly, I don't know. Now, I do know in discussions, that I've had with colleagues, off the cuff and off the record, there's been discussions around that throughout the years. But, our sense of employees and, going back to Mr. Ren and his original principles was, giving the ownership of the company, okay, back to the employees. So there's a employee share program that is open to both employees that are local Chinese as well as expats and foreigners. But you have to be vested and work for the company. I think a minimum. It varies, locals versus foreigners and expats. But it varies in terms of years of service. And for the most part, as an example, I think foreigners or, multiple years of service compared to Chinese
employee stock
national.
ownership program. We don't have a lot of time now, so I do have, I want to jump out of this financial services and ask you a couple of quick questions. One is sovereign digital currency. The DCEP launched this year. Huawei is not included as one of the 8 wholesale banks, obviously not. And so in other words, in this future digital network that's built on this digital currency infrastructure, Huawei is sort of already a step behind, isn't it? I mean, do you have any plans to catch up? And it's trying to expand the digital currency network across the global developing world. Where does Huawei fall in all of this?
No. Yeah, I mean that I would characterize that as a bit of a misconception. Okay. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the press, a lot of the focus is on other major Chinese giants in this space, such as Alibaba and Tencent. Huawei deliberately, from a strategic perspective and contribution and working on these solutions, supports them through research and development and from a core technology perspective. So this is a fact. I mean, we are working with the PBOS since the digital currency research started in this place in terms of providing advice.
So Huawei has provided the technological support behind the PBOC's digital currency launch. That's what you're saying, though.
Yeah. So, for example, specifically in database technology. So what is going on in blockchain databases? What's going on all over the world in terms of cryptocurrency technology innovation for database layer architecture? Huawei is contributing to that with the PBOS.
So would you say that you are the leading infrastructure provider to the PBOC in this regard, in building digital infrastructures?
I would be careful with that. I don't want to say that.
Would you be the first one to tap?
I'm certainly saying we're a contributor and we're a player. We're working with the government on the digital RMB, but more from an enablement.
I have a question on the 5G, and of course the world does many more. China, last November, we launched the 5G networks across major cities, and then Huawei announced that you are going to R&D in 6G. Tell us what's going to be the quantum leap for 6G? When is it coming out, and how does that going to look significantly different from 5G networks?
I think that, based on my knowledge and what I'm seeing right now, it's still very, very much research and development.
Right.
I don't think, from a
what would a 6G world look like? Illuminate us a little bit. We've already heard, got a first taste of how 5G world is going to look, but what about 6G world?
I don't think as humanity we figured that out yet. That's a very good question. I would say, my perspective is 6G is going to enable us to come off the device. Okay, so I've been saying this all along. My prediction is, we're on year 10 or 11 of a smartphone right now. Okay, whoever can take what we do on the smartphone and then display it in a 360-degree sphere of where you're living your life. And then you as the consumer.
So probably 6G will take us to space in that case, right? So probably it will be the technology for the moon and more spatial exploration.
Well, that could be, but it could take you to your own personal space. I mean, wouldn't you like to wake up to the morning or the day where you don't have to grab your phone to check everything you need to do to manage your life? Maybe you want to.
It will be all chips in our brains, right?
That's true too. But wouldn't you like to just simply on your bathroom mirror, check the weather?